starting to finally warm up the weather. Um, Next week is actually going to go up to 78 2 times next week, and then it's going to go back to the 40s next Friday, which I'm very happy because that's the day I'll be sitting outside getting before the sun sets. I'll be having my candle little what do you call those little things where you put the candles in? Like, I carry it around. It's like a candle holder. I'm going to sit out there and have a little glass of wine and just watch the sunset, before bedtime. And take a nice walk next week and get my car washed. I'm going to be doing all that next week. Um, Finally, spring is around the corner. I do want to start planting. I've been wanting to plant for a while now, and I think that, I should start early. But right now I'm on my way to get my nephews and see my niece and sister. I'm gonna stay the night over there, and then the next day I'm gonna go over to see my friend after that. I haven't seen my friend in like how many months? It's been what, October? Well, late September to October, November, December, January, February, March. So I mean, it's been about 5 months, because I was late. That was late September in a while, and I'm gonna be, my mother and all them live around the same area as she does, and I can't see her every day. She lives far out. She lives like 45 minutes, 50. Unfortunately, unless someone lives next to you, it's gonna be very hard for you to always see them all the time, and it's just, you get tied up with things in life, and you only get 48 hours of time on a weekend, and that's not a lot of time. Considering trying to get things done in your house because you only got 2 days. You got to clean your house. You got to get things together. You got your husband. You got to cook. You got to clean. You got your family. By the time you're done with everything, it's very hard to just make that commitment every weekend to see someone. It's very hard. Like I said, unless they were your neighbor and they live next door to you and you could take an hour or two throughout the week to see them and spend time with them, it's just very hard to do. You'll be sitting there blowing up your gas every damn day. you know so it's not easy. I'm trying to find time for everybody all at once. It's not. I still have to find time for my grandmother I haven't seen since last year. No, more than a year, because that was 2020. What was that, 2024 when my grandfather passed away? I can't believe it's been a whole, it felt like yesterday. But I'm well overdue to see my grandmother. It's been almost it's been a year and a half now. Hey, you can find time for everybody. It's all about prioritizing your time. Yeah, that's true to an extent. Yeah, you can prioritize your time all you want, but you'll kill yourself nearly to death trying to find time for everybody all at once. You can find time for people, but not when they expect it. It would be when you least expect it, and not all the time. You know what I mean? It's just hard, it is. And when you're an introvert, it's very hard, it's even harder, to find time for people. But yeah, so I'm just going to see my nephews. I mean, yesterday I went to go to my parents' house, and father surprised my mom, and then after that I came back home, and then me and hubby left. We went to go see Scream, whatever, that Scream 7, because he wanted to go take me there to see it. I'm like sometimes wondering, like, should I even be watching movies like that? But I did. I was watching Scream 7 like yesterday in the theaters, and it was pretty okay. I like the scenes where they beat up the bad guy and try to get away from him. But I noticed something too. Like, I noticed that I get more afraid now with horror films versus back then when I was younger. I would get scared, but I was more intrigued by it. I'm not so intrigued. I'm more disturbed by horror films nowadays. I don't know. But I like the scenes where they get justice. Came back home. As soon as I got home, I fell out to sleep. I didn't even get around to doing anything. I fell out to sleep. I mean, I didn't even stay up, because the movie ended, I think, around nearly 10 o'clock. We ate at Texas Roadhouse. We got out of there at 10:30. And then I just went straight to bed. As soon as I walked in, I just fell out. I couldn't keep my eyes open because I'm on a schedule now. I got to be asleep by like 9:30, 10 o'clock the latest, because I get up so early now. I get up like, what time, like 4:45, 5 in the morning, straight through now. I can't even like go up any later than that. And if I do, I'm like in a rush. And yeah, I'm just on a whole strict schedule now. And I know myself very well. If I get off that schedule, I will be procrastinating and I'll end up being late to work or something because I'm Mrs. Late, you know? I'm a type of person that Mrs. Late. I tend to have time management issues. And I've dealt with that for a very long time. So it's like I have to be so strict with everything because it's like if I go off my time, forget it, you know? I'll be late, and the next thing I'll be getting in trouble at work. They're like, "You're 45 minutes late, ma'am." You know, so I gotta be careful. My last job, the good thing about that job was that I could manage, like, come in a little later if I wanted to, because I knew that okay, well, we don't have patients today on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I could come in at 9. You know what I mean? I didn't have to come in straight away early in the morning like that. So, you know, I could get a couple more hours of rest. I can't do that no more. Those days are over. You know, my schedule is locked. And, you know, I work for the hospital now. So, you know, they got everything on like this. Super management. My last job I worked for was a private doctor's office, you know, within a facility. But it wasn't the hospital. So, you know, it's a lot different. It's very, very different. You know, he was one of the very few last private doctors that were left. He was like one of the best. But, you know, everything comes to an end eventually. You know, you have to, you know, there's a time and place for everything. I will miss him very much, but, you know, I knew as well that I had to move on and I had to do more things. I knew it was time, you know. I had to move up the branch a little. So, yeah. And, you know, it is what it is. If I do like my job, I'm very thankful. I thank the Lord. I'm very happy that I'm employed, and this new job at the hospital is a good worker. Got to be hired at the same time as me at the same place. So, you know, we just went from one job together to the next. You know, but yeah, it's just different in the sense of, you know, timing and everything. You're on such a strict time. You can't even like come in later if you wanted to. You can't do that at this job. You know. And if you want to take time off, vacation time, you got to get it approved. Like my old job, I could just tell somebody, I'm taking off these 2 weeks in August. I just want to let you know. All right, put it in the calendar. We'll take care of it. Now, you got to get it approved. You just can't just tell people I'm going on vacation. You got to go and put the time in. That's the biggest difference. A private office versus like a corporation, you know, like a hospital. So, you know, you got to get approvals for everything. So we'll see. You know, I'm very just happy to have a job and be working and getting off unemployment. You know, I could have stayed on there longer, but then I thought about it. I said, who's to say that if I had stayed on there long, it probably would have been harder for me to find a job. You know, the longer you wait, who knows? But yeah, earlier today when I was driving, the camera looks so foggy. I don't know why. It looks like a dream. You know, I don't know. I think it's the lighting or something. I don't know. But I was reading First Samuel because I know I was reading some things in there in First Samuel from my last stream. I think it was First Samuel chapter 15. And I wanted to do it at home earlier, but I kind of ran over the time a bit. So I'm just like, I'm going to summarize what I read because I don't have the Bible in front of me. But I can tell you it's definitely in First Samuel, that chapter. If you read it, you'll see where I'm going at. And I got to the part about David, where the Lord picked him. And he's going to be the new king of Israel. And at first Saul picks him to fight the Philistines, and he goes after Goliath, the giant. And Goliath was part of the Philistines. You know, they were attacking Israel and doing all sorts of things. So the Lord chose David to defend Israel that day. And he trusted the Lord, you know, and he ended up fighting him. He did something with a sling, and it was able to kill this big old giant man down and took him down, you know, because nothing is too big for the Lord, you know. So then Saul, becomes envious, jealous actually of David, because everyone starts saying, oh, David more than, summarizing what I said, so he killed more than Saul, and they started mentioning that, right? And Saul started to develop a jealousy over David. He started to become jealous of him and even try to offer his daughter as a wife to keep him close to him, right? Offers his daughter, Michelle, I think it's Michelle, to be his wife and, to keep him close. But all the while yet, he was planning his death. He was planning to kill David because of his jealousy, right? And, it goes on as you read more and more about his life and what happened between him and Saul. Saul starts throwing a javelin at him, and he gets an evil spirit, right? And David starts playing music for him to help him get rid of that evil spirit that he had. And every time David's playing, like I don't know how many times he threw it at him, that javelin, to kill him, but every time he tried to dodge it at David, dodges it. He escapes from it, right? This car is coming in way too quick. I hate when they do that. He dodges it, so he doesn't die, and Saul's getting frustrated, and it eventually it gets revealed that he's trying to kill David because he, for without a cause, and we know the reason, because he's jealous. He's very envious of David, and even his own son Jonathan, who loves David very much, and made a covenant with him, defended David. He defended David, and Saul felt threatened by David. He felt jealous of David. I think he was jealous of his recognition of how good he does in war, and I think he felt threatened by him, that he was going to take over his kingdom, because David really does become king later on. And he begins seeking David to kill him and everything. Now, I'll tell you one of the passages I was reading earlier today. David's hiding in the cave, and Saul comes up to him, and David has 400 men with him in the cave, and they're egging him on to kill Saul, right? When Saul comes to attack him with his thousands of men, right? And David, although he's afraid, he has faith. He's a man of God, right? He chooses not to kill Saul. He just cuts off his skirt, and Saul is like, sees this. He sees that, wow, he's choosing to love me rather than kill me and hate me, and he gets to see how David moves versus his moves. And Saul had to acknowledge the fact that, wow, David, did good. I'm the one that's doing wrong here, because I'm the one that's trying to kill him without a cause, because I hate him, because I'm jealous of him, because I envy him, right? And when I read that earlier today, it made me think, I said, it's almost like a foreshadow of the life Jesus was going to live, right? That because Jesus lives that later on, right? And David is used in the book of Psalms, and it states in Psalms 110, the Lord said to my Lord, who he's talking about Jesus, because that's before Jesus' birth, right? It was almost like a foreshadow his life of what the Lord Jesus Christ was going to go through. Through envy, people jealous of him, because the Pharisees were jealous of Jesus. They envied him. They were all about power and using God's name in vain for gain. And when they realized that their power was threatened, they became jealous and envious of the Lord, and they hated him and wanted to put him to death, and hated him without a cause, as the Bible says. And the same with David. So, Saul hated him without a cause, for no reason, and wanted to kill him for no reason. All because he was jealous of him, envious of him. He felt threatened by David, and he just wanted to get rid of him. He set him up he was so envious of him, he set him up to marry his own daughter, just keep him close to him. And why is that? Well, and we can look at these scriptures and learn from it, and look and apply it to our life today as well, right? Because that's something that we go through as people when we are dealing with people who are envious or jealous of us, right? They want to stay close to you, right? Why? So they can keep tabs on you, so they can gain your trust, make you feel like I love you, I care about you. They'll love bomb you. They'll give you compliments, but behind the smiles, the fake smiles and the happy cheer-ons, they really can't stand you. And there's a lot of people like that in this world. There's a lot of people like that in this world that's walking around like that. And you got to be careful. A lot of times people who call themselves your friends are your biggest enemies. They say, I love you, I care about you. And at first, maybe they loved you, but then they've developed this hatred for you because they start seeing things about you that makes them feel threatened. You know, they see a light about you. They feel like, oh, you know, they start to be jealous and envious. And you know what the Bible says, jealousy is as cruel as the grave, right? So that's what was going on with Saul and David, and I was reading it. And you got to read it. It's in 1 Samuel if you haven't read it yet. I'm sure a lot of people have heard it and probably didn't read the whole chapter, but read it. You know, and another thing that I looked in there that I noticed that it says is that Saul, right, was afraid of David because of wisdom, right? Like along those lines, like he felt threatened, like afraid of him because of his wisdom, right? Why is that? Why would somebody be afraid of your wisdom or feel threatened by your wisdom? Why would they be so afraid of that? You know what I mean? If they mean well for you. If, you know, because a person that means well for you wouldn't feel afraid of your wisdom. They wouldn't feel like threatened and afraid to be exposed about something, right? But somebody who's doing wrong and evil would, of course, have a problem with somebody who is wise, who moves in wise ways. They have a foreknowledge of things. You know what I mean? They're able to seek, to discern a situation and make good judgment about life situations or how they move, because they just don't move quickly. They think through with things and they observe things very, very, very much. They won't even tell you that they're observing, but you can tell by how they conduct themselves and how they move that they're very wise. And see, the thing is that Saul was so jealous and envious of David, he was plotting all along, right? And he probably felt threatened by his wisdom because he's like, wow, this man's so wise that he's going to catch on to me. He probably, if not already, right? Because, you know, he's blessed by wisdom from God. God put some wisdom in him. He was a very wise guy, very wise young guy. So yes, young people can be wise. The Lord passes on his wisdom to us. He had a lot of wisdom for a young man. And, you know, there was something on my mind about that too. He felt very threatened because he obviously was up to no good. He was probably fearing the idea of being exposed. And I sometimes wonder, before David acknowledged the fact that Saul's trying to kill him, because before that, he dodged Saul twice when he was playing music for him, and he would just dodge it, you know? You know, the Bible never really states, at least from my angle when I'm reading it, doesn't seem as if like it states whether David was aware or not. I sometimes wonder if David was aware the whole time that Saul was jealous of him and that he was trying to kill him. You know what I mean? I sometimes wonder. I got to read it back over again, because every time you read the Bible, you learn something new every single time. And it's something I was thinking about as I was reading. I wonder if David already knew, because he was so wise, like he already knew, but he was just pretending like he didn't know. And then when he finally got confirmation that this man is really jealous of me because the way he's moving, I thought it was just me, but I was paying attention to him throwing this javelin at me. But now I realize this man really is trying to kill me. He is very jealous of me. And, you know, he's threatened by me. He's trying to get rid of me. Because he acknowledges it, right? After the javelin was thrown at him, he realized he was trying to kill him. But I wonder if before that he was suspicious. Like, I wonder if he has any kind of suspicion or discernment of something that didn't seem right. You know what I mean? I don't know. It doesn't really state, at least from my angle when I read it, you know? I have to read it again. But yeah, you look at those things, and you relate to that in your real life, and you say, well, a person that can be... that resents your wisdom, right? don't like your wisdom. They don't like the fact that you have foreknowledge to see things about certain situations or people, right? You got to be leery of those kind of people, because a lot of times this because they are not in the right place in their mind. Their minds are not in the right places, and they may have bad intentions for you, you know. So they may resent you because you are very wise, or because you have a foreknowledge of things. You know, you tend to see ahead of the game, you know, and you tend to move wisely because of it. You move in very smart ways, you know, versus unlike other people. A lot of people may react to things based on their emotions. You tend to observe things and, you know, take your time and move as smooth as a dove, but be wise as a snake, because you're like, you know, you tend to assess very carefully, you know, evaluate everything very carefully before you make your moves. And you tend to, instead of using your emotions for everything, when people are trying to attack you, you tend to use logic, and you tend to keep the attention on them, observing them. And that's how you know how to move, because you're like, okay, I'm observing how they are, what they're doing, how they're moving. Are they trying to attack me? Are they trying to find things to get me to get out of character? So you're not keeping the attention on yourself. You're keeping it on them, you know, because you already know that their intentions are wicked and they already got plots, but you already prepared for the plots. And see, that's why they don't like people that are wise. People that want to do evil, you know, they don't like people that want to do that have wisdom. They don't like wise people. They don't like people with good judgment, because they know that now it makes it harder for me to do the things I want to do. So remember that if you see a person that resents you for your wisdom, or they tend to like have a problem with the fact that you tend to move in wise ways, and you know, they tend to say backhanded compliments about you, like you're a very wise person, you like to talk about life, you tend to be very observant, you're very careful about things, you're very like, you know, you have your guards up, and they got a problem with that because you tend to assess things, and you tend to take the time to evaluate people and places and things, right, in situations. Be careful, people like that. If they got a problem with you because you tend to move that way, you're careful. And they're like, you're just too cautious, girl. You got too many guards up. You got too many boundaries up. Those type of people, be careful with them. Because a lot of times, I'm not saying all the time, but I'm saying most of the time, or a lot of times, they ain't got good intentions, or they move in ways that are not wise, and they expect you to move the same. Or they got bad intentions for you, and they move in ways that are shady, and they're expecting you to not be smart enough to see what they're really trying to do. You know? So, you know, reading that scripture, you know, it reminds me of that as well. You know, it's a lesson to be learned, you know? And I'm now here at my sister's house. So I'm going to be gone for the night. I ain't gonna be back home until tomorrow night. And when I get back home tomorrow night, I gotta cook dinner for hubby, and then I gotta be off to bed, you know. I may do a Bible study tomorrow, but we'll see before I go to sleep. It depends if I have time, because I'm so busy right now. I gotta get. Oh, there's my sister. She just got here too. Good. So you guys take care. Have a good night. Goodbye.